Da-dum, dum, da-dum. Da-dum, dum, da-dum. What is up, aka Padders? I am Peter A. DeLuca, aka Pad, your boy, your host. I am your guiding light to everything pop culture, and welcome to our huge Terminator block. And today, right here, right now, amongst the robots from the future, we are talking Terminator 3, Rise of the Machines, the movie most people hate. Let's hit that intro. Now, I say most people hate this movie, and I mean everyone but me. Yeah, but hey, thank you for joining me, and thanks for hanging out and talking Terminator, talking science fiction, talking time travel, talking cool guns, talking explosions, talking, I would say some consistently really cool designed things. If you're into vehicle design and robot design, if you're almost coming from the school of Star Wars, in appreciation for that, because we know Star Wars has I would say the original trilogy, the greatest design run of any movie franchise ever. But hey, if you're new here, help me out, help me help you. We need subscribers, we need retweets, we need comments, we need you out there listening. We need your interaction. You have to show this podcast to a friend. You have to post this somewhere, because we're growing. The AKAPAD army is growing. This idea that we do long form film discussion is catching fire. It's moving forward, because deep down, and I'm vocal about it, I pretty much believe film criticism is no longer with us. I think it died. It went the way of the dodo. And we have clickbait articles, clickbait headlines, and the internet and YouTube to thank for it. And I really feel like it warped the essence of film criticism and film discussion out of critics and reviewers. Because even recently, I've been, I watched Lighthouse and went to YouTube for a couple reviews after I saw that movie. And even right now with The Mandalorian. And there's people doing non-spoiler reviews for Lighthouse. And that's a movie starring, it just came out, it's with Robert Pattinson, William Dafoe. And it's like, okay, not really a movie that needs description. It's almost like reviewers just don't want to do spoilers, because when you bring in spoilers, you basically have to rip the movie apart and be able to talk about all of its innards. And it's almost like, I'm doing a non-spoiler review because I'm doing you a favor. It's almost like you're servicing the audience rather than servicing your opinion of the movie. And it's just really weird. It's a very odd virtue signaling action. I don't care. We talk spoilers here. If you don't like spoilers, get to another audio. Hit next. And that's largely because of what I witnessed there. And it's funny, because I don't know how you would discuss like The Godfather. I don't know how you would discuss Star Wars New Hope, or The Sixth Sense. Like these movies whose endings and hooks, and we all know Luke is Vader's son, Empire Strikes Back. And it's almost like there's a lot of people going into those movies now fresh, and they know those hooks, they know those surprises. So what exactly are we maintaining when we talk about spoilers, or we leave out spoilers, or we leave out discussing the movie when it's something new? I don't know. I think it's the quality of the movie overall. I think if the quality of the engagement that the filmmaker has weaved is high enough, I believe you get sucked in and you become, you become one with the movie. I mean, like this just happened with a female friend of mine. For the 31 Days of Dread, we watched Rosemary's Baby. Okay. We know the hook of that movie, right? It's hard not to know. And I get it, some of you might not know, but that's fine. But the movie itself is so engaging, it doesn't matter you know what's coming, because the journey there is great. But anyway, and enough about that. We're talking Terminator. We're talking Jonathan Mastow. Now, Jonathan Mastow, he's our director. I've alluded to the Terminator rights and what really happened with Cameron, Schwarzenegger, and the Terminator franchise between Terminator 2, 2D, Battle Across Time, that came out in 2001er. That's a 21er. And this movie, which came out 2003, because James Cameron was very animated on, within some publicity of Terminator, T2, 3D, Battle Across Time. That was your theme park attraction. Part movie, part live action. Really cool thing. It really cool. I must have seen it 5 or 6 times. He said this is bridging everything between Terminator 2 and 3, and I view Terminator as an episodic adventure, which is funny because I view Terminator 1 and 2 as a loop, a time travel loop that gets closed. Very similar to Back to the Future 1 closes that loop, and Back to the Future 2 and then 3 are, they're adventures on that original loop. They don't flow into, that first movie. I view these Terminator movies very much the same way. I view T2 Rise of the Machines as a stack on top of T2 and Terminator. Our next movie, Terminator Salvation, I view it the same way. Terminator, the Sarah Connor Chronicles, I view the same exact way. Terminator Genesis, I view the same exact way. And Terminator Genesis is the only one that embraces the loop and the breaking of the loop and actually putting something like directly in the middle of the loop. It really is. It's just like a crushing continuity movie with a lot of balls. And a lot like Last Jedi, it has my respect. It really does, because it swung for the fences. It tried, like it tried something new. And I love it for it. So 2003, we have John Mastow. He gets involved with maybe at the time the biggest film ever, the most money spent, and everyone knew this movie was coming out. Everyone knew Schwarzenegger was coming back. Everyone knew James Cameron was not involved. Everyone knew, if you read the trades, that there was a rights switch. There was bankruptcy. There was this. There was that. James Cameron doing Titanic, or Schwarzenegger doing his Governor run, or like there was all of these things, okay, that were happening around T3. John Mastow comes in, and he was on my radar when he got this movie, because I really loved his 1997 movie Breakdown with Kurt Russell. I just spent the night watching Escape from New York too, by the way. And then I very much remember in 2000, U-571. It's a WW2 submarine movie starring Bon Jovi. That's all I remember about that movie. I've seen that movie about one time. And then in 2003, he is the guy who directs Terminator 3 Rise of the Machines, which is a deconstruction of everything we thought we knew, everything we think we know in Terminator and Terminator 2, and even Terminator 2D, Battle Across Time, is false. We learn that John Connor is so paranoid. We learn this in the beginning of the movie, but John Connor is so paranoid. He's off the grid. He's off the grid to the point that in the future, Skynet loses track of him. So Skynet sends another Terminator, a advanced one, a TX 1 million, whatever. It's a girl. It's cool. She's hot. She's beyond beautiful, the woman in this movie. And she's part exoskeleton, and she's part Terminator. She's part exoskeleton. She's part liquid. She can form weapons with her arms, and she can also control vehicles, Wi-Fi, internet, that sort of thing, which is, again, all really cool concepts. I think she does too much. I really do. This one-upsmanship with the Terminators isn't, like, it's not, it shouldn't be a thing. Like, there's a reason why the T-1000 is a prototype. It really is. We should kind of always go back to the T-800s at the infiltration units when it comes to Terminator. This is also a history lesson within the franchise, because we see, like, version 1, Mark 1 of the Hunter Killers, those awesomely designed flying weapons of destruction. We see Mark 1, T1, not T600 that we see in our next movie, Terminator Salvation, not the T800, the T1, the first version of the Terminator, is portrayed in this movie. We see the evolution of Skynet. This is a complete deconstruction of everything we think we see. So we have a John Connor that is on the run. He's off the grid. The machine sent back another Terminator, but this time to kill his army command. And they all happen to live around the same area code. So the TX, we'll call it, right? It's the TX. It's got to be the TX. Yes, the TX goes around killing everyone. And she starts making her way to John Connor, and who's played by Nick Stahl, who is awesome in this role. He plays this role perfectly. Nick Stahl, at this point, I had pinpointed to higher things, because he was also in the movie around this time called In the Bedroom. And, Oscar contender movie. In the Bedroom still has one of the most impactful movie deaths ever. And he kind of goes from this into HBO's Carnival, a Carnival show. And I thought, I don't know, I didn't like that at all. I thought he should have stuck with movies, because maybe this movie didn't pop because it was so expensive. It may, like, he may have had less offers. I get it. I really do. I don't agree with it, because I feel like he has so much to give when he performs. I haven't seen him in something in a very long time. I think Nick Stahl is the best of all the John Connors. I really do. Like, he's so much better than Eddie Furlong, and that was all we had at the time, except for a couple future looks at John Connor. So we learned that Skynet and Judgment Day happened. You cannot stop it. And this is now beginning. This almost sounds like what Cameron was alluding to in some of his press for T2 3D Battle Across Time. See previous episode. Okay? See, we have to have a way to make this an episodic adventure. If Judgment Day will happen no matter what, and we have a few characters, a few people on Earth aware of it, we have ourselves something cool. We really do. The point of this movie is that you cannot escape fate. You cannot escape destiny. You must embrace it. But this movie also does two separate timelines. We have the timeline that everyone sent from, the later Judgment Day, the Judgment Day that takes in the future, like later within the future, because we're dealing with a different Judgment Day now than they did in T2 and Terminator. And then we deal with the new thread of everyone being aware of what happens. So when characters are supposed to fall in love, you can almost predict that they cannot, and they will not if they know they're supposed to, which is one of the reasons why we shouldn't know of, our future. And we kind of get into Back to the Future there. So the Resistance in the future, the humans send back a reprogrammed T-800 Arnold Schwarzenegger, again as the good guy, to protect John Connor. But it's Claire Danes that sends him back. He can only take orders from her. He cannot take orders from John Connor. It's getting pretty deep here, the plot. And then the entire backstory is the rise of Skynet, which is Claire Danes' father. He's this military guy running the internet, and throughout the movie, we're being teased that the virus is slowly making its way through all the military, like all the military computer systems. And eventually in the movie, the military loses control of their armies, of the Army, Navy, Air Force, so on and so forth. So they initiate what they call Skynet to squash out the virus and to retake control, and this now becomes the real Skynet. And we learn that Skynet doesn't have a core, doesn't have a hardware off and on switch. Skynet exists within the internet, which is fine because it's topical. Like the threat of Skynet moved with the times. Now we see this in the next three of the next 4 Terminator movies. We don't see it much in Salvation, but we see it in Terminator Genesis, and we see it in Terminator Dark Fate. Sorry, next 2 of the next 3. I cannot speak for Sarah Connor Chronicles. I'm going to binge watch some of that. I'm pretty sure I'm going to squeeze that in as a additional episode. So this idea that the machines will rise no matter what, it's very cool. The end line, the end message of these Terminator movies are always like, fate is what you make it. And this movie is the war will continue, meaning, they gave the machines a W, but now we begin the future wars. This is where the franchise always should have gone. It's amazing that, look, the company puts this out, they go bankrupt. Okay, this movie made domestically $150 million. 65% of its box office, 300,000, totaling 430 million. 300 million of that, 65% of the box office, was international. This could have been one of the movies that helped create the international and domestic release model from these big studios. Terminator should always pop more overseas. People love it, on an international level. But we kind of see with the 150, we do see somewhat of a, people might be tired of the franchise even by this point, even by 2003. Which stinks. Because we want strong Terminator movies as a box office, as studios putting out movies. This is our New York Yankees. Like, the Yankees prop up the league so other teams can exist in smaller markets. We want studios to be able to own Terminator and to put out Terminator and do similar things with Terminator. Just to make that money, but to do something good along the way also, because we demand it as a cinema going audience. So this movie's labeled as bleak. It's labeled as depressing. This movie is a wonderful part 1. Thinking of what could come of part 2 is just mind-boggling. And I feel like we get this with every other Terminator movie from here on out. We keep getting this part 1 reboot. Salvation, Genesis, Dark Fate, these are all part 1s. Because desperately, whoever embarks on a Terminator movie instantly wants a trilogy. And I think they're right to demand that and to fish around for that, because the Terminator franchise and the visuals and the iconography involved with Terminator is so epic, it's so recognizable, it's so embedded in the culture. Why wouldn't you? You're doing yourself a disservice. You're doing your investment a disservice if that's not what you're going to go for. And I don't believe in just make one. I really don't. I think this movie is just one, and it's awesome. What's the biggest issue with this movie? Well, it's our boy Jonathan Mastow. Because I believe this movie is too glossy. It just doesn't look like what you think a Terminator movie should look like. And from here on out, I think Terminator Genisys nails the look. I think every Terminator movie somewhat struggles with this, though. I feel Genisys struggled. No, not Genisys. Salvation struggled with it, even though Salvation had a very purposeful look. I do like it, though. But still, no. Terminator should have a piece of art to it. There should be like contrast to the framing, to the lighting, to what's happening with the colors. Genisys, is pretty close. I haven't seen Dark Fate. I can't speak for Dark Fate, but I don't feel like this movie does it. Too much action in the daytime. A lot of the action set pieces are not. They're good. They're long. You can follow what's happening, but they just aren't quite there. But that's really my only criticism. I think this movie has an incredible strong plot. Claire Danes, all the performances, home runs. The backstory, the mythos, the chronologically stuff done, the chronology within this movie is a home run. You believe the stakes. The ending sticks with you. One of the awesomest endings of all the Terminator movies is right here. Like the final point of this movie is fantastic. I think we have our best John Connor, because this John Connor is resisting who he is, and he's not John Connor. He's not even the John Connor from Terminator 2. The John Connor in Terminator 2 was a little shit, but the kid had balls. Again, you kind of respect that. Nick Stahl as John Connor is doubtful. He's weepy. It's a different character. It's a different take. But the look of this movie somewhat fails the audience, and it fails the franchise. It really does. And I get it. There's other things that might have been happening with screen projection within cinemas, within the industry, to force the look of this movie. I get that. But I wish this movie had more texture to it. I wish they had better lighting. I wish we had a level of contrast when it comes to the frames. Again, T2 Judgment Day, if it did anything for the franchise moving forward, should show you how these movies should look. And that should be duplicated to a degree. But you have to be your own thing. I think this movie, pretty sure Cameron said it, this movie is not on its own. It's too embedded on what came before. This movie should have diverted what came before, not embed itself further into the mythology. And I do agree with that, but I feel like what's there, like the extending arm, the tentacles, the roots that go into T2 Judgment Day, I think they're good too. It's a tough call, and those are a lot of the creative decisions that make film audiences, like film going, somewhat frustrating. But look I can keep going. Everyone, we're doing Terminator Salvation next. Another legendary Terminator failure. This is the Christian Bale Terminator movie after Dark Knight. The Dark Knight comes out, and boom, he's coming as John Connor. It blew everyone away. And then this is also the infamous Christian Bale recording freaking out argument where he's yelling at the lighting guy while he's in scene. This Terminator Salvation. Incredible cast. Another incredible story to how it got brought to the big screen. And it's the only movie amongst the franchise that does attempt other than T2 be its own thing, because Cameron's right when he says that T2 did its own thing based on Terminator 1. It did its own thing, and it subverted expectations, but making Schwarzenegger the hero, not the villain. Everyone, we are doing Terminator Salvation next for episode 256 of AKAPAD Audio Audacity Podcast. I will see you. I will hear you there. Thank you.